coming back from the whiteboard and all the doodles, it made me think we have to make this simple. Why are we still sticking to paper? Just because we've done it this way, we need to duplicate this in a digital realm. Why not blow the roof off of that and think of it from a different perspective?
These are true stories
of the shared pains
facing designers,
builders,
inspectors,
and operators
on our quest to
streamline collaboration
in the digital age. Find out what happens
when industry and technology
stop playing nice
and start getting real.
We
are the Construction
Progress Coalition.
And this is the Shared Pains Podcast. Welcome to the Construction Shared Pains Podcast. My name is Sasha Reed, and as your host, my role is to help us all gain a new perspective on the systemic changes that are needed for design and construction to thrive in the digital age. Over the next 4 episodes, we'll focus on 4 separate CDX challenges, each held in our Open Integration Hub during the AEC Next SPAR 3D conference. Today's episode is dedicated to the Field Data to Dashboard Challenge, presented by Bluebeam and DeWalt, impacting collaboration efficiency between trade contractors, GCs, inspection authorities, and of course, the project owner. If you missed the explanation in episode 1, CDX stands for Common Data Exchange. Those of us in the BIM world are probably familiar with the concept of a common data environment, or CDE, which is the central source of truth for all project stakeholders to access and rely upon to do their jobs effectively. Helping me break down these shared pains with Field Data to Dashboard interoperability is Dan Smolillo, CPC Thought Leadership Chair and Construction Technologist at the Walsh Group.
Really, the truth is, field data collection is kind of difficult right now. We're trying to understand what are the different data sites that we can collect from between safety, quality, where are the different silos? Are we just tracking financial information? Are we tracking little metrics? What are those core KPIs that we want to gain from the field data to really have these efficient and robust dashboards?
As with every episode, our goal is to provide you, the listener, with a clearer understanding of the root causes behind construction's productivity imperative. The process is fairly simple: digest, debate, decide, and deliver. First, we'll digest the root cause of poor data collection, debate the role of top-down requirements versus bottom-up incentives, so that you can decide what level of transformation you can deliver, depending on contract type or team culture. Get ready to hear some honest conversations about the uncomfortable steps necessary to unlock the full potential of construction technology. Here to introduce the industry and technology perspectives featured on today's episode is our roving reporter, Nathan Wood.
Thanks, Sasha. Between Bluebeam XCon and the AGC BIM Forum, I was able to catch up with a number of participants from this year's Open Integration Summit. To help us break down the Field Data to Dashboard CDX Challenge, let's welcome.
My name is David DeYarsa. I am the CEO at builderbox.io. And I've been building stuff for 25 years. So I don't come from the technology space. I come from the construction world. I actually trained as an architect, CAD management, BIM management, and later on in life, VDC management. And so found some gaps in the technology space and decided to create what would fill those gaps.
You'll also hear from
Lillian Magallanes, and I'm a senior industry consultant for Bluebeam Software. A big part of what I do is working directly with our customers and helping them optimize their current workflow and helping them point out where some of the features in review can help them get the best results to increase their productivity and reduce risk.
As well as
Philip Lorenzo. Had a product for a software company called Construction Site. So we used to work for a large GC in reality capture and 3D laser scanning. USIBD stands for the U.S. Institute of Building Documentation. Vice chair for a committee for imagery. So we're trying to create standard for how you deliver images, whether it's from 360 photos and videos or drones on a construction project.
And of course, last but not least,
my name is Joshua Bone. I am the construction technology specialist with DeWalt, working on our digital tool side of the business.
As we begin to digest these shared pains with field data to dashboard interoperability, I wanted to understand from David's broad perspective across design, construction, and technology, what impact has data had on this industry over the past 5 or 10 years?
The reality is that data has not changed our industry. Data should be changing our industry, and maybe somebody can say that data is changing, but I don't believe that anybody's really changed all that much because of data yet. I think we are in the early stages of allowing data to drive decisions. One of the things that I keep hearing a lot, and I think we're at a bit of a tipping point, there's so much construction technology, but a lot of it still relies on a lot of manual data entry, even though our inputs and our interfaces to that entry have changed. As a software developer, trying to create the flexibility within the application to allow for all those different scenarios is a very difficult thing to do.
When I asked Philip about his shared pains, the frustration centered around a lack of data transparency, which seems to be driven by contract and culture.
One of the biggest pains is there's a lot of software out there that isolates all your data into their own software. So it's really important because we spend all this time coordinating the project, designing things, and capturing data from the field is part of the feedback loop. We don't get feedback in terms of how things were executed. Were things installed on time at the right quality?
And Lillian shared some insights on the shared pains that her clients are facing on the government side.
Government is behind in general. And why is that? Well, the best analogy that I can give you is think of a cruise liner ship. When the captain needs to make a command, it has to go from him to his second in command all the way down to the engine room. That ship doesn't turn around in a moment's notice. It takes about an hour for that command to come through. Now, in government, think of it in the same process. It's not an hour. We're talking years for that to turn around. And that's something I've seen in the last couple of years on the consulting end, where a lot of government customers have come out of the woodworks and said, hey, we need help. We recognize that we're behind, but we need someone to kind of help us identify those pain points.
Josh works a lot with trade contractors, so I wanted to ask him about the influence and opportunity that they have to improve the process. His answer?
Nobody's asking them. It has been an unheard voice for a very long time. They don't expect to get anything a lot of times from the back office. You have one foreman, you have a superintendent that represents them, but they really are the unheard voices. And a lot of times their ideas, the things that they come up with, just don't make it back. Understanding how many people are on the job site. So daily reports, sometimes it's easier said than done. I mean, how are you going to do daily reports that are effective? Because just because 19 people showed up on the job that morning doesn't mean that 19 people worked on that job after lunch.
As we move into the debate section, I wanted to ask Josh how the trades really felt about all this technology on the job site and the traditional concerns that maybe Big Brother is watching.
It seems like we're always going back to that conversation of tracking and getting in.
And motivation to track.
Absolutely.
If you're assuming that a report is a manual entry that takes more time out of your day, but what if you were okay with everything being tracked, knowing that only a certain part of it was being used for a report? Are you okay with that? I think that depends on personality. It depends on contract incentive. It depends on a lot of factors.
You're exactly right. I mean, that's, but I think to the communication part of this is one thing that we have to do.
Speaking of communication, I asked Josh about DeWalt's ultimate strategy with Wi-Fi and really trying to connect this digital job site together.
Wi-Fi is step one of a much bigger play. It is. We have to have the ability. So once we can start collecting this data, we have to have a way of getting it back up into the cloud and pushing this information around. So Wi-Fi is the first step of this. There'll be other types of devices in the future that can help us collect data and in a passive way, and that's where we want to start to take some of this. I remember a time when there was no connectivity in a trailer. The connectivity on the job site is going to be the same expectation. It's going to be written in general conditions. It's going to be something that companies are asking for. We have to have connectivity on a job site.
So it's clear that standardization is needed in construction, but how?
This argument for make your technology so easy that there doesn't need to be any training, and I always push back on that. It's like any tool worth its weight, you should spend a little bit of time knowing how to use it properly. Also, I hear a lot if you have like a capture app out in the field for hours worked or incident reporting or things like that, it should be as easy as the pen and paper that it replaces. Well, I don't know about you, but I find managing complex projects with pencil and paper paper to be extremely difficult. Everybody's got their standard and they're all pretty similar, but it's that last mile problem rears its head back once again, right? Is that last little bit, that last 10% of the standard that doesn't quite match. We get involved in projects and we help our customers deploy almost as a consultant, not just a technology provider. We have the opportunity of asking those questions, of saying, okay, what, Mr. Subcontractor A and B and C, what kind of questions, what do you call things in our system? This is what we can do. The general contractor is used to this standard and the owner likes this thing. So with all of us in a room, we put together an execution plan that says this is what we're going to call the status, and we all agree on it. So if everybody, regardless of contract type, if everybody once they're on the contract can simply have a charrette style meeting where they actually do some project execution planning, maybe they can have these conversations.
As Lillian reminds us, we must have better alignment and understanding with the project owners and executives.
The need for change needs to come from top down. So if management is not in the room or in the trenches with the pain, change is not going to happen. It will continue to be resisted. And therefore, those of us who want to be change agents, we're sort of pivot to the corner of like, okay, well, let's make it similar to what it is so that it's accepted by management. Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage management to get in the trenches, to think of it objectively, not just replicating an existing process in a different method.
Sadly, there is no silver bullet to decidedly solve our shared pains with field data to dashboard interoperability. Digital transformation is a long road that begins with a delicate balance of changing people and process.
One of the things that I walked away with is the human element. I think we make things a bit more complex. The reality is that we need to really think about simplifying the processes in the whiteboard discussions. Everyone had different questions, but kind of stepping back, it made me think we have to make this simple. And, it also made me think about, why are we still sticking to paper? Why are we still sticking to, just because we've done it this way, we need to duplicate this in a digital realm? Why not, blow the roof off of that and think of it from a different perspective?
But that core catalyst to change still begins with the tools and the technology itself.
We see the world changing. We see it going to offsite construction. This industry is in the cusp of a change. And we see that BIM today on certain jobs, not every job, that it's as critical of a tool and is a need as a reciprocating saw, as a circular saw, as an impact driver, that we want everyone to understand that these are the tools to do construction today.
So I asked Josh what all the union heads thought about all this technology and disruption. You actually might be surprised by the answer.
It's not if, it's when. They want to lead this. I'm hearing that from the carpenters. I'm hearing that from the UA. I'm hearing it from IBEW. I'm hearing it from the ironworkers. They don't want to be one left out, because we talk about that conversation, the whole idea of how we've commoditized our industry. We've got to look at this as more of a consultative type process, and how we can turn this around and put sensors on equipment and understand that this is the right piece of equipment for you. We have that data. We've collected this. This is the cost that it takes to maintain this equipment. It's the cost for the life cycle of this. So it's going to happen. We don't want to be the last ones to the party. It can hurt us. If we're not there at the time that all this starts coming about, then it's going to put them at a disadvantage. So that discussion has changed. How are we going to adopt that? Because it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when, and when are we going to be there?
But at the end of the day, even when the unions are pushing for progress, there always seems to be someone dragging the project team behind.
I've always kind of sarcastically asked the question, why are we doing a BIM execution plan and not a project execution? Specifically to this idea of statuses, I think that what GCs can do out there to help this is to maybe get over themselves a little bit, and to realize that whether you call a status done or finished or whatever is completely irrelevant if the data is the same. What is the outcome?
So how do we deliver solutions to this shared pain? The uncomfortable truth is that the answer lies in unlearning many traditional strategies, many of which are still taught in universities today.
Now that we have digitized the process, which is the low-hanging fruit and what everybody should be doing at a baseline, it's not enough to say, okay, now that RFI is digital. Now we have to ask the question, what is it that we can do now that we have this digital information? Extrapolating that to every single project, well, technology plays a role there of saying, okay, let's standardize this thing. Let's come up with some accepted ways of doing this thing that we can all be very consistent about, so that all of our customers don't have to reinvent this wheel every time they start a project.
So once we finally get over ourselves and start sharing project data in a standardized and transparent way, then what happens?
We need to better understand what's happening and have better transparency into where things are in the field and how things are moving on the job site. We've got to do more data collection. Data is what's going to change our industry. We look at this and we look at tools. We're a 175-year-old tool company. When people see the yellow and black, they think of power tools, they think of hand tools. Why are those not data collectors? Why are we not taking some of that information, taking those? We have so many unknowns in this industry, Nathan. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. We can't manage what we can't measure. So for us, that ability to see that the face of work, that's a big deal. I think we're going to learn things that are indicators that we did not see as indicators previously. We've learned from our data that if we don't hit this deadline, that now we're 25% more likely not to meet our total project schedule. Let's take hangars, for example. We may do hangars 50 different ways. We have complicated the process so much. How can we consolidate the way that we're doing things? How can we simplify the process, streamline the workflows? And I think it's going to be things that surprise us, things that we've kind of been kicking the can on, but we're going to see it now, and it's going to be transparent to us.
Now, let's assume we've removed the communication and incentive barriers at the job site level. There's still the issue with consistent data standards across projects. Philip explained one way that CPC and USIBD could collaborate on new interoperability standards development.
Being able to, between an organization like USIBD and CPC, create standards for how the data should interface with other softwares in a standardized way is of huge importance to make sure that when someone captures something in some solution, that it works in other softwares. I think a big short win, it would be a format where someone can export the photos they took on a drawing, and there's certain metadata that's included with that tells you where those photos are located, who took it, a certain number minimum field to easily import in there, so this management-oriented software.
Looking at the future, David got me really excited about a new concept he's been working on called
Readiness Index, and the ability to mine data from the entire platform. I really like having those conversations with our customers where all of a sudden I see the light bulb moment for them. And we're talking not just about the software and how to use it, but I typically ask them questions that they weren't prepared to answer, having to do with their flows of data and of information. A lot of work on the supply chain, whether it be statuses of an RFI or whether it be, cost information or product availability information, to see them light up and go, oh, wait a minute, I can tie this information from here to there. So now I no longer have to save a file and I no longer have to go searching for this thing. This is wonderful. So now I'm not suggesting that by using technology, those wouldn't occur. I think that you always need to do that. But I think that we can provide a framework under which some of these things are figured out to a certain point.
And as we enter back into reality, Lillian reminds us that while we should be persistent, we also must remember to be patient.
We're wanting to get government to require things, but one thing we're lacking is we're not asking government to work with us. We're not asking government to partner with us together. Oftentimes we tend to start running and we look back and government stays behind. And so it's taking time for them to adopt it. Oftentimes they wish that they can implement it within 30 days, but that's not the reality. And that's why I think that we need to have the partnership with government to, continue to push these standards. And, that's why we need to work with them from the very beginning so that change comes from the top down. And really the top down is government.
This is super timely because last week I was in Lincoln, Nebraska for the International Highway Engineering Exchange Program, or IHEEP conference. And I was moderating a panel of DOTs, contractors, and consultants who were talking through this. And this question actually came up through the Twitter feed. So it's hashtag IHEAP2018 if anyone wants to eavesdrop. But we were talking about, from the DOT's perspective, their need for codes, for laws, for those real bright lines. But the fact that we're in uncharted territory, right? So in this uncharted territory, we're going to need some flexibility. And so a conversation broke out on Twitter talking about, well, maybe instead of either or, it's a yes and conversation.
Well, and I think that's such a great parallel with what we're trying to do with CPC. I mean, all the conversations and the buzz over the last few months with this US IBD, with the BIM Forum and their LOD standards, with the CSI, Construction Specifications Institute, and Uniform or Master Format standards. They're and of course Building Smart International, and Building Smart Alliance. I mean, there are all kinds of standards out there that need to be connected. And I think, why would we be out there creating another one? We're just trying to be that glue, have those conversations, create that framework as we're learning. This framework of a CDX playbook that can connect all of those different dots together in a more mass customization or kit of parts fashion.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something so important. It has to be a tool that brings the people together to have the conversation. So much like the BIM execution plan created a conversation, it's not a set and forget. If you create an execution plan as, well, we set the execution plan, we sat at a table at one point in time, and then it's just going to live in perpetuity. It's not how it works. People are coming on and off the project constantly. We can't expect them to reference something necessarily as they come on that project or be of the same mindset, which is why I think it's so important that the approach that's being discussed and taken is, no, this is a framework to facilitate a conversation, an engagement, and an agreement. The national BIM standards, I think a incredible, valuable document and resource for us in the US. But one of the largest bits of feedback we received was it was so massive, nobody knew where to start. Nobody knew, okay, where's my point of entry? And I think that's so important as we look at these frameworks. You have to create a digestible place for somebody to read through and know where they insert themselves or where it aligns with what they do. And so that's why some of these conversations about the integration and that data is so exciting, because it means no matter where you're coming along that process, as long as we understand what the information is to be exchanged, you can still just do your job, but however, the way you're going to be doing your job and the way information is shared will be slightly different.
And I think, the BIM execution plan is a great example, whether it continues to exist, or not, it's another communication tool, and we want to breathe life into that and many more of those tools, but until we build time for that communication.
Yeah, Nathan, it sounds like some of these themes are super timely, and I appreciate you going out and being our roving reporter and gathering all those conversations for us. We got a lot to dig into in the next couple episodes here.
Absolutely.
CPC wishes to thank DeWalt and Bluebeam for sponsoring the Field Data to Dashboard CDX Challenge. Next episode, look for ways to streamline the share panes with late design changes and their impact. For more information on CPC membership or to participate in a CDX Task Force initiative, visit constructionprogress.org. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of the Construction Shared Panes podcast. We look forward to joining you here next time.